This is Huge Boxing ahead of the Origin show on December 13th, and I have the pleasure to be joined by middleweight prospect Jimmy Sains. Jimmy, how are you today, mate?
Yeah, I'm all good, thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on.
No worries, mate. I mean, let's talk about December 13th. I mean, another fight. I mean, I was just saying to George, doing the interview before you, I find it incredibly hard to believe that I have one more fight than you at York Hall, both amateur and pro. I mean, but excited to box at, the iconic venue that is York Hall.
Yeah, York Hall's such an iconic, great venue, especially, it's mad because I boxed at Repton for so long as well, and it's literally around the corner. So to not box at York Hall, don't know why I haven't really, to be honest. I should have boxed there a few times, but I'm just really looking forward to fighting there. Got the green and gold colours, green and gold kit for the Repton. So it'll be a good night.
Definitely, mate. Let's touch on your the beginnings before we get into the Repton, because I do want to touch on them specifically. But kind of when we go all the way back, what brought Jimmy Sains into the boxing gym for the first time?
Well, as a young kid, I thought I was always like, not fighting, but like always quite boisterous, always like play fighting. My granddad, my dad. It was always, if there was a fight at a football pitch, it was always me or something like, yeah, I just enjoyed it really, to be honest. And then my dad I think I was around 5 or 6, my dad just took me down, it was in Rainham actually, just like, it's not really a boxing gym, but I had a boxing ring in there, it's like more of a weights gym. Took me down there for the first time, I'd done a few classes, and I just really enjoyed it. And then in that short time, I come on loads. I think the first time, I've said it a few times, first session I went in there, I was throwing 2 punches at the same time. I didn't really know what I was doing. And then, the coach obviously got me like in the right stance. And from then I come on loads. And then I went down to Brooklyn Boxing Club, which was a great boxing club. I stayed there till I was probably around 12, 13. And I had my first fight there was in Attleborough. Okay. Never remember it. Dean Dynamite Smith. I'm not sure if he's still boxing. That was my first fight. So from there, went to Newham, which is a great fight. Great gym, Joey Chapman. He's produced loads and loads of national champions. And then from there, went to Repton, which is, I think, the home of London boxing. And it's known all over the world, especially in Europe. It's such a big club. And it's been going, I'm not sure the exact date, it's 1820s, something like that it's been going for. So, to be fighting around the corner from the York Hall, from Repton in the York Hall, I'm looking forward to it.
Definitely, mate. Before we get into that, Dean Dynamite Smith you mentioned.
Dean Dynamite Smith,
that is, what a name that is. But that first ever fight, kind of what do you remember from that day, or remember from that fight?
It's quite funny actually. I was in the changing room before, and there was just some kid kept looking at me. I just didn't think anything of it, and I was looking at him, thinking like, "Do I know you?" Or like, "What's?" And then the coach went, "Oh, God, you're bogging him out, aren't you?" I was like, "What? Is that him?" I didn't realise that was him, and then we was in the changing room. It was probably even smaller than this. It was like tiny, and then before the boxing was going to start, they moved somewhere else. So I thought, to myself, I didn't really fancy it. But you know what? My first ever fight, I wasn't nervous one bit. Weren't nervous one bit, not at all. I don't know why. Just because it was a new experience. Didn't know how to feel. Didn't know what to expect. I just weren't nervous at all. So I got in there and I just boxed really well and I won. I was just like, it was an amazing feeling, and it went so quick. And it was a great night. I remember in the car on the way home, I think it was me, my dad, my granddad, nan and granddad, brother. We all squeezed in the back seat on the way back from Attleborough. And it was just something I'll never forget. It's mad. I probably couldn't tell you even the pros I've boxed, the last 7 fights, but I always remember Dean Dynamite Smith. That was my first fight. I'm not sure if he's still boxing. I hope he's all right anyway, but that was my first fight.
Dean Dynamite Smith, get in the comments. We want to know if you're all right. But then obviously fought for the Repton. You and Maisie you still represent the green and gold. They're kind of everywhere you go. We went to the Tony Burns tournament, I think 2023. I was caught up with you guys there. Yeah. I mean, but when you look back on the Repton, kind of in the community, kind of feel that that it has. Kind of, how do you obviously look back on it with fond memories? Obviously, still catching up with all the fighters that you train with as well.
Yeah, I had a good catch up with Darren Barker recently, and just to go into Repton, even when I went in there a couple of weeks ago to see the boys, it's a weird. You just go in there, you can hear the noise, you can hear all the bags, you can hear all the coaches shouting, and it just brings back so much great memories of like, because when we was younger, there was a lot of us all trying to get to that top level, get to the national titles. We all used to work so hard. We used to go in there. The heaters had been on all day. You go in there, it'd be so hot. It'd be like as soon as you walked in there, you'd be sweating. Do you know what I mean? Everyone used to like graft hard together. You go in there, there's people who've come from the building site, coming all their gear, taking off, getting the sparring gear. There's people come straight from school, taking all the school uniform off and getting straight in the ring. So it's just a great community. I mean, I love everything about Repton. I think everyone who's been at Repton knows, and like that family sort of community down there, everyone understands it.
Definitely, mate, as well. And you see kind of what those fighters go on to do as well. But I do want to touch on something that you mentioned to Tony and Darren. You and Dennis McCann were the same weight at one point.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone loves Dennis McCann, but that seems like you might need to chop off a leg to make super bantamweight, I think. But I mean, how was that kind of time with Dennis?
Yeah, that was definitely giving me a few ideas, I'll tell you that. When I first went down there, I think he was around 50 kilo. I was like 53, but the trainer there, Bobby Beck, it doesn't matter what weight you was, he was sticking you in with anyone. So, wow. It was great sparring. I remember Adam Mohammed also used to spar him quite a lot. The Oliphant brothers, they used to spar them. Yeah, so it's great to see like Dennis. He's gone on so well, doing so well in his pro career. I think, was he Commonwealth, British and European champion. He's doing great. He's making everyone from the Repton proud.
Definitely. And are you picking him to beat Pete McGraw on December the 21st?
Yeah, I mean, Peter McGraw's a good fighter. He's great. He's had that great amateur pedigree. But I feel Dennis has got that more pro experience that can help him to win the fight. I'm backing Dennis all the way. Yeah, he's a good friend of mine, Dennis. So I'm always behind him.
Haribos to celebrate for sure.
Yeah, a few Haribos. Yeah,
definitely as well. I mean, let's move on to the kind of the middleweight landscape as well. I mean, you were talking about this with Darren as well the other day. I mean, how do you compare kind of, the middleweight division kind of now, the middleweight division that you're in, to kind of the middleweight division to when kind of Darren was involved with Andy Lee? I mean, do you see it as kind of two different kind of perspectives from there now?
Yeah, we touched on that a bit with Darren. I mean, he had some great fighters. I think you said around his weight at the same time. I think he didn't actually end up fighting Andy Lee or was it Matthew Macklin, and there was one other.
Murray.
Murray as well.
Murray, there we go.
All coming through at the same time from Britain, all great fighters. I feel like there's a few potential good fighters that could make a great fight for me, definitely, on a domestic scene for the British title, hopefully. Maybe not at that level, but we'll see. Hopefully, in a couple of years' time, when I've got the British, we'll see.
Definitely, mate, as well. Obviously, you were talking the other day kind of, obviously not overlooking December the 13th at all, but you'd kind of like to target the southern area in the first quarter of 2025. I mean, definitely a realistic kind of objective for your career so far. Yeah,
obviously I don't want to look past December 13th. Like you said, I want to take one fight at a time, and always your next fight, it's always your hardest fight, and got to make sure I get through that first. But hopefully I can look to get a southern area title or some sort of title straight away next year. I'm looking to maybe get out end of Jan again, so hopefully can get a title there.
Definitely, mate. We're looking forward to see it as well. I mean, I was watching our first interview back the other day. I mean, when I was such a botch job, setting up my camera on kind of the side where Tony keeps the kettle and everything like that. But I mean, you were mentioning in that kind of you initially kind of wanted to go to the Olympics, kind of get the Olympic medal your way, and then kind of turn over pro there. Obviously, that hasn't been the case. But what kind of was that turning point that made you want to go, no, that's probably not for me now, I'm going to go and turn over into the pros?
I think that was always my goal as an amateur coming through, to get on Team GB and to represent England around the world, do you know what I mean? Or GB. But I don't know, there weren't really a turning point. I just thought there was, they took out my weights in the Olympics. They changed a lot of the Olympics. I boxed at 75 kg as an amateur, and they changed it from 71 to 80. So I was a bit too small for 80, and I was a bit too big for 71. So yeah, I mean, it didn't really work out in the end. But the time I had as an amateur on training at GB and there with England boxing as well, the trips I had definitely put me in good stead for turning pro.
Definitely, mate, as well. And then obviously, whilst you were an amateur, you were training with Tony as well. That was when you hadn't even turned over professional yet.
Yeah.
I mean, how important was that time kind of, mixing your time with both amateur coaches and a pro coach, and not just a pro coach, but I mean, one of the best pro coaches that this country has in Tony Sains as well.
That was staying amateur for another year or 18 months, doing the senior ABAs 3 times. I think it's definitely the best decision I've ever made in my boxing career. I mean, like you said, I was training down Repton 3 times a week, training with Tony probably 3-4 times a week as well. So I was getting both knowledge from pro trainer and an amateur trainer. So I mean, I got beat in the quarterfinals the first time in the ABAs, then I got to the finals twice after that. But the first time I was definitely, like Tony said, I wasn't too mature. I was 19, I was still young. Second time, I just boxed a good fighter in the final and he just beat me on the day. But the third time, I was knocking people out. I mean, in the quarterfinals and semi-finals, I had 2 knockouts. And the boy who beat me in the final ended up knocking him out a couple of weeks after. So that time where I was learning with Tony and at Repton as well, definitely had sort of like, I learnt my apprenticeship, make sure I definitely conquered the amateurs, and I was definitely ready to turn pro, which was definitely the most important decision I made. I think looking back, I wouldn't have been 7-0 and 7 KOs if I'd have turned over then. Okay. Yeah, I feel like got my man strength, I got my knockout power, which showed in the amateurs. Then I took it through to the pros with me.
Definitely. Was that KO streak, the couple of weeks up, that was in the Tri-Nations, wasn't it? Was it?
Yeah, and in the ABAs as well.
And in the ABAs as well. Yeah. Okay, cool. And then
it was all actually at the same place in Rotherham.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
A bit of a trek for us. But I mean, so then obviously that kind of, yes, like you said, set you up for the professional ranks as well. But obviously Tony kind of, by his own admission in the podcast the other day, he was saying that he was kind of like holding you back almost. I mean, taking you back to that time, was it always a kind of a situation where you trusted the process, or was it sometimes a bit frustrating? Kind of, you mentioned there you wouldn't have it any other way now, but in the time, did you want to turn over pro a bit quicker?
Yeah, at the time maybe it was a bit difficult. You got to trust the process. I mean, Tony's been there with lots and lots of fighters. He's been like with Darren, he trained him as an amateur before he turned pro. I think the same with Kev Mitchell, he trained him as an amateur towards the back end of their amateur career. So Tony knows what he's doing. He's been a great pro coach as well. So I trusted his opinion, and it's put me in good stead. I mean, looking back on my first pro year, I've gone 7-0 and 7 KOs. So I mean, Tony definitely knew what he was doing.
He definitely did as well. Let's talk about the pros now. I mean, this December 13th will mark your 6th fight. We were just saying you're more active than some journeyman at the moment. Yeah. But I mean, that is some going. But even a prospect, like 6 fights in a year is incredibly impressive. I mean, you've mentioned that they're all by KO. It couldn't have gone any better. But how have you assessed kind of, I mean, your career so far as a professional?
Yeah, it's been a great year. I've been fighting and I've been learning straight away, and I've been fighting again. So I've been keeping very active. So yeah, I've been keeping very active, and I've been learning loads along the way. I feel like every fight, I'm not just rushing all the fights. Every fight, I'm looking back at it. Tony's picking out a few things that I need to work on, and by the time the next fight comes around, feel like I've progressed and improving all the time.
Definitely, kind of one thing that I've always found kind of with Tony when I'm training with him, is that repetition side of things. Yeah. Kind of, even if I'm doing a double jab backhand hook, like, we'll do it 6 times until I get it right. And even when you guys are doing the triangle, you do it week in, week out. The stairs, it's the same kind of training, but there's method to it. It works, right? I mean, how does that kind of improve your game? Building up those 1%, as I put it with George, that must kind of, it almost ingrains that success into you, and that progression to you as well.
Yeah, Tony's always making you. I mean, sometimes it might get a bit repetitive, maybe a little bit boring, but that's what you need to do to put that. It's more or less muscle memory. If you've got that movement or that punch, that combination, you learn it. We touched on Darren Barker the other day. He's got all the combos on the wall. If you learn all them combos, you go through all the combos. When you're in the fight, that it's more or less muscle memory. That shot or that combo will just come naturally.
Without giving too much away, what's your favourite on the wall, mate?
Favourite on the wall is probably the Zarate. I like the Zarate shot, which is the jab, hook, and then come with a backhand. Yeah, I like that shot.
Okay, yeah, don't use that on me, Jimmy, please don't do that. But also at the beginning of the year, I mean, you've done something that, I mean, some fighters don't even do in their entire career. You finished a camp in America ahead of your fight out there as well. I mean, and obviously you sparred some great fighters. I know George sparred the former interim champion Serhii Barchuk as well. But you were around there. I mean, talk to me about that experience, and you experienced something so early on in your career as well.
Yeah, I said it a lot when I was out there, but making my third fight out in Vegas. I mean, not a lot of people say that, especially from the UK. I mean, for someone from the UK to say they fought in Vegas so early on in their career is it's unbelievable, to be honest. And can't thank Eddie and obviously Tony Sims enough for that great opportunity. I mean, the training camp out in LA was unbelievable. I learnt so much, even not even just the sparring, but just like the lifestyle and the training, all the boys together, to definitely put me in good stead for my pro career. To know what I have to do, the sacrifices I have to make, time away from family and friends, eating the right foods, training hard, just that lifestyle of the camp life. It was an unbelievable experience, and it's put me in great stead.
It definitely has. I want to talk about the sparring. I mean, when I'm reading about former fighters who have, especially from the UK, have gone over to America, Andy Lee being the main one, kind of he went over there, scrawny Irish guy, he went into the gyms and they wanted to beat him up. Did you have kind of, that's why I always admire you guys going out there and mixing it with these Americans who basically don't care who you are, they just want to beat you up. I mean, how are those sparrings going out there, mate?
Yeah, there's Americans, there's Mexicans, there's Cubans, there's all sorts, there's Puerto Ricans, and they don't care that you're fighting in a couple of weeks. They don't care that you just want to learn a bit of sparring. They're trying to kill you. They don't care about you. And that sort of mentality in sparring, it's an unbelievable environment to be sparring at such high level. When you get into them fights, you're prepared for that already.
I mean, we've wrapped up all my questions, Jim. Thank you very much. Best of luck December the 13th, mate.
Thank you, mate. Cheers.